The overlying message in this interlude, rightfully named One Story, is that there's only one story. Every writer that has ever written anything takes from and gives to the same story. That story revolves around anything and everything a writer has ever written, is writing, or ever wants to write about. Foster claims that the one story is about ourselves and human life in general, the decisions we make and the different lives we lead. Now, you may be confused, or you may be an intellectual sponge that retains and understands every piece of information given to you. If you already understand what I mean by one story, then sit back, pat yourself on the back, and congratulate yourself for your extravagant mental capacity. But if you're like me, you don't really understand yet what every writer writes one story really means. Here's my explanation. One story for dummies, including me. All pieces of literature have a similar overarching purpose: to show us, the reader, through a myriad of different forms, human experience. To show us ourselves, people amongst the people, where we are in the people and where we are in our own lives. Overall, writers are teaching us where we are in the world and how we compare and interact with our worldly surroundings. If every writer has the same overall purpose, how are pieces of literature any different from anything else? Good question, Brighton. Very good question. Stop, I'm blushing. Shut up. Now, you may think most writers would want to avoid being cliché and want to avoid ideas or other character traits seen in other stories. However, that's not necessarily the case. When writers work off of other ideas seen in other texts, usually they grasp onto it and use the idea and the history of the idea to bring depth and understanding to their new character or plot. This technique helps resonate the meaning of their work in the mind of their reader. Repeated characters, plots, themes, and elements of a story bring a sense of familiarity and comfort to a reader, therefore indulging and interesting a reader even more in any kind of piece of literature. All writers have amnesia. Sometimes, writers trying to convey their message get overwhelmed with ideas, information, and their own personal knowledge. Foster claims that these writers sometimes have to practice a sort of amnesia. In case you don't know what amnesia means, here's a definition. Now, obviously, I don't think Foster meant that writers literally practice the art of memory loss, but here's what I got from that. Writers, when writing, sometimes constantly have literary techniques, tools, and a history of those literary techniques streaming through their heads all at once. On top of that, they also have the voices in the back of their heads screaming at them for their own personal life decisions, or really anything else. It sounds like writers are crazy, and to an extent, they may be. But overall, they're just like anyone else, with thoughts and ideas constantly popping into their heads. They practice amnesia, or forgetting the subconscious database they have of past literary history or experiences in the moment of their writing to help convey the deeper message. 2 ways to understand literature. Foster also marks upon 2 big ideas that are prevalent in understanding any piece of writing. The first one being, and I know you've heard this several times before, intertextuality. Every story is connected, and every writer, whether they know it or not, is writing something similar to another piece of work created before. It's quite literally impossible to write something without, in some way, connecting it to the World Wide Web of literary works. The second concept is archetype. An archetype can be any story component that is used again and again and again and again and again and again and again in all types of literary works. Although one might think it would become overused, it really doesn't. As an archetype is repeated, the meaning and use for it grows stronger, and the reader is more attuned to understanding the component and recognizing why it is used so often. One example of an archetype is the character archetype of the explorer. Any character who pushes the boundaries of understanding themselves and the world and feels the need to explore. The explorer can be seen in books like The Adventures of Huckleberry Finn, or movies like Indiana Jones, or even television shows like Dora. the explorer. As writers and readers, and really anyone else, we all share our structure of intertextuality and archetypes. The great web and body of literature is in all of us. Anything and everything is connected in some way, and we can use that knowledge to better understand ourselves and our place in the world as a whole.